Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kissing the Cod, all things gold. The gold exploration business is an exciting one, full of interesting people, highly intelligent, very entrepreneurial, fiercely independent, I would say. And it's our goal to introduce you to a lot of these people. Today, we are joined by Tim Froude, CEO, President, Director, and probably many other things with Sokoman Minerals. One of the nicest people I've met, and a resident of a wonderful jurisdiction, Newfoundland, which is experiencing a wonderful, for all of us, modern day gold rush. Welcome, Tim. It's good to see you.
Well, thank you, Janet. And one thing I should add to that list of accolades you had there was I'm also cook. And in fact, before the camp got too big, I actually cooked for everybody out there just to be close to the action. So yeah, many hats for sure.
Yeah, I think I've been the dishwasher, everything in my glamorous career. So welcome today. Sokoman's doing some amazing things on the island of Newfoundland, and to be clear, the jurisdiction of Newfoundland and Labrador. So, but first, tell us a little bit about your background. Fascinated to hear more about what brought people to being in the geology and Newfoundland.
Well, I'm a local boy in that I grew up in central Newfoundland. In fact, our flagship Moosehead project is only 20 kilometers east of my hometown, Grand Falls. And I grew up there, and I guess thought, like most fellows growing up in that town, it's a pulp and paper town, so I'm going to work in the mill, or I'm going to work in the woods as a logger or a forester or something. But yeah, so going to school, I did the forestry thing to start, and quickly realized that my stronger passion was actually rocks. And so in my second year of my 5-year forestry program, I switched majors and became a first-year geology student, and haven't looked back.
Oh, wonderful. And you are originally, you've lived in Newfoundland for many years. I think you moved there young in life, and your mom is there as well?
Yeah, well, that's one of the many positives of the project. I mean, you're correct. I mean, in our careers, we travel the world looking for mineral deposits, and wow, what a rare opportunity for me in particular to be home again, to be close to my family, especially my mom. Now that she's getting on, I get to see her a lot more often, which makes her happy. And yeah, just the grind of travel. We don't spend, and you know what? That's good for our shareholders, because we don't spend a lot of money in traveling to projects in far-flung corners of the world. And it's just comforting to be able to maybe have a chance to give something back, to the area that I grew up in. And and there's so many of us. I mean, our whole team basically is from central Newfoundland. It's amazing, all of these guys, which gives us a tremendous advantage in terms of just having local knowledge. I mean, it's hard to put a price on that, but knowing the area and the roads and the people and the shortcuts and things like that, and the business people that I grew up. My dad, that a lot of people know my dad, and they see me walking down the road. Is that you, Tim? What are you doing, sort of thing. And so I tell them what I'm doing, and they say, "Wow, that's pretty neat." And yeah, it is neat to be back home again, and be amongst family and friends, and not only that, but to have a project like Moosehead, which is just surpassed my initial expectations. For me at the outset, it was get a good project and get a couple of good holes, and we'll see where it goes from there. But this thing just took off from hole one, and yeah, it's great. I mean, we've got a great bunch of shareholders. We've built a great team, and I think I'm not saying we have a mine, but we're trying.
Well, you have an amazing history on the island. In putting together this podcast, I've been talking to people, and your name always comes up. It seems like you know everybody, and everybody knows you. But you have a lot of history with the Valentine Project back in the 80s, do you not?
Well, you know what? It's kind of well, it's a great story from a personal story for me in particular. I was still actually I think I was in my last year of university and working for BP Resources, and Dave Barber handed me a soil anomaly map, and basically he pointed me, go down there and basically see if you can come up with any kind of an explanation for these soil anomalies. So my assistant and I, Gerald Harris, another young man from Buckens at the time, a young man. I think it was our second trip down there. We were basically given a few weeks to kind of suss out this anomaly. And anyway, partway through the second day, I noticed a piece of quartz sticking up through the moss on this little knob near what is now, I guess, Valentine Lake or Leprechaun Pond, sorry, and broke it. And geez, there it was. I mean, I actually have it right here. I actually have the discovery piece. I don't know if you can see any gold in that, but anyway. So anyway.
Yes, definitely we can.
And yeah, so that's my connection. I mean, clearly, a lot of work has been done there since then. And I tip my hat to all the hard work that the men and women that, obviously built that project to where it is now, especially, Marathon Gold, they've done just such a great, Phil Walford and Sherry Dunsworth. I mean, they just did a tremendous job, and well deserving. I think they got the Bill Dennis for that, so well deserved. And yeah, so my little piece of that, I guess, was just bringing attention to an area where there wasn't any known gold. There's gold occurrences like miles away, but this was just a raw bush discovery. And yeah, I'm pleased to still have that sample.
Well, and we're going to put up a picture here of the of you and your partner at the outcrop, and also the rock there from the Leprechaun. I have the name correct, right?
I think it's going to be part of what will be their Leprechaun deposit. But yeah, it's I'm surprised that picture survived. But anyway, it's a bit embarrassing. But anyway, go ahead.
That's great. It's great. It's the 80s, right? You look like
that's true. That's true.
Having a great time out there. So
you could wear your hair longer back then.
So you have and we can get into Sokoman a little bit, but you have a bit of a pattern of surprise discoveries.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that was a surprise, but it was the target, and surprises can come in many forms. Recently, I know our lithium discovery basically came out as a blue on our Golden Hope project in southwestern Newfoundland. I mean, we staked the project for its gold potential, and I think our second trip down there, we happened across some outcrops that. Well, we first thought they were quartz veins because they were white and they were sticking up. So, oh, quartz over there, let's go over. But anyway, after we had a look at them, and our crew at the time included Michael Stairs, Mick, and Stephen Stairs. I'm sure you know those guys from Benton and White Metals, and Sean O'Brien, one of our advisors. Quickly looked at it and realized there's something more to this, and it's not a gold system we're looking at here. This is something different. And the boys recognized it for what it was, and we popped some samples in, and sure enough, came back with some pretty substantial amounts of lithium. And yeah, it's kind of taken a life of its own. We drilled a few holes there in the winter through some very trying conditions, and not a good place to be in the middle of winter down there when it's in the open, barren country. It doesn't take much for the weather to play havoc with you. But yeah, I know. And you know what? I never told you this the first time, but this kind of thing happened to me before as well when I was back in my early days with Inco, who I spent many years with out of university. I was drilling a project up in the Shining Tree greenstone belt between Timmins and Sudbury for VMS. And so we were drilling this beautiful alteration zone, looking for zinc, copper in volcanic rocks. And we ended up punching through a sheet of mineralized rhyolite with zinc and everything, nice, beautiful mineralization, and banged right into this gabbro, which is a mafic rock that had disseminated nickel, copper, and as assays subsequently told later, PGEs with it. We drilled through that and then back into the volcanic rocks again with the lead, with the zinc and copper in it. So yeah, so I mean, that's why one of the reasons I love this job. I mean, you don't know, like Forrest Gump, you know, life is like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, you should always have your eyes open, I guess, is the lesson here. And you know, good prospectors as well also help. So they make you look good.
What do they say? Look for something that doesn't belong.
Exactly. No, you got it.
So let's talk a little bit about Sokoman. I love the story of how things started to grow for you when you were barely a phone call away. So I'm just going to let you talk a little bit, and then I want to talk about Newfoundland after that. So let's talk about Sokoman.
Yeah, well, Sokoman started life as a company called Golden Dory Resources in about 2006 or 7, I think. I wasn't a founder, but I was invited to join the exploration team shortly thereafter. And yeah, so we basically had projects in Newfoundland. We had a kick at a couple of projects in Nevada for a while, and returned home and got into the iron ore space when iron ore was hot back a number of years ago. And unfortunately, the market just seemed to collapse. Wherever we were going, it seemed like things were just falling apart. Timing is everything in this business. And so anyway, so things went pretty quiet with Golden Dory, and yeah, there were some pretty lean years. I had to go to work for other people. Like we all do this. I mean, you know, if you're and the thing was, I was the last man standing because I was the only one who could do all of the necessary things to keep the company listed. You know, you had to have the QP and all this stuff, someone to write reports and all this sort of thing. So anyway, we were almost out of money back in 2016, I think. And in between there, we changed the company name from Golden Dory to Sokoman Iron, and changed the name again to Sokoman Minerals after the iron ore collapse. We didn't want to associate ourselves with iron ore, but iron ore is popular again. So, you know, it's up and down, as you know. So around 2016, we didn't have much money, and I was actually working for someone else at the time. Vic French, by the way, thank you for saving my life at that point. We had a project that we staked, sorry, Altius had a project that they staked next to what will be the Valentine Lake mine. And they announced a very exciting discovery. And so I phoned up our CFO and said, how much money have we got in the bank? He said, $8,000 or something like that. And I said, oh, okay, well, I can stake 120 claims, and we'll see what this gets us. So anyway, we staked the claims, and you know, a few weeks later, I was still working for Victor. And one day I was traveling home, and the phone rang. It was a Vancouver number I saw. I better get that. It might be someone trying to give you some money. So anyway, as it turned out, it was the IROC guys who wanted me to explain our sudden, I guess, market interest. Apparently our stock had traded quite a substantial number of shares, and I wasn't even aware of it because I was at a phone coverage. No one could contact me. Apparently what had happened was a newsletter writer in the US picked up our story. He was following the Altius discovery sort of thing, and just happened to mention us as a bottom fish or whatever, just to, you know, pick it up as a flyer sort of thing. And next thing you know, we were able to raise $200,000 or $300,000, and we staked a couple of other properties on the trend from Valentine Lake. And yeah, so we kind of built from there, and eventually we managed to acquire in 2018 the Moosehead property, and it was our very first hole. We drilled kind of a good one, I guess, and basically our fortunes changed at that point. That's when Eric Sprott, became our largest, and he's still our largest shareholder. And yeah, we've been going at her ever since. And yeah, like I said, timing is everything.
Well, you. I love the story about the guys from IROC. For people that don't know the acronym, we know them well. When they call, you pay attention. Your stock goes up, or there's something that's happening that gets their attention. So I think you were talking about John Kaiser, perhaps, with the.
Yeah, no,
newsletter.
and sorry, any copyright infringements there for John Kaiser and his bottom fish report. Anyway, I think he just picked us up as an area play sort of thing. You know, you might want to buy a few stocks anyway. So he happened to mention us, and yeah. So like I said, we traded like crazy for a couple of days. The stock went from a cent to like 13, and we were able to raise, I think, $300,000. And like I said, from there we kind of jumped along a couple of properties, getting a little bigger and more, aggressive as we moved along. And then obviously, I was aware of the Moosehead property. Everybody working in Newfoundland at the time knew that, Moosehead had some pretty high grades and things like that. And Altius, of course, are the ultimate. They're the masters of, and well done to them, property generator and, bringing capital and, activity to the area, especially, and very staunch supporters of Newfoundland. So, yeah, we kind of fit the bill for them, and they obviously fit the bill for us. And yeah, it's been, like I said, first hole, you have to have luck, Janet, in this business. I'm not saying we intended to hit 12 meters of 45 grams with hole one, but we did. And
how appropriate that leprechaun in the Luck of the Irish was your the story that I know, right? And you're right. There's so many people. It's got to be like everything's got to come together to make it work. And whether you're getting a newsletter writer like John that picks up your story and finally gives you a little bit of attention, and then that leads to a big investor like an Eric Sprott, who's been absolutely essential to what we're all doing in Newfoundland.
yes.
But you've got to have the right technical team and the right people behind it to get those people interested, right?
Oh, absolutely. And one key thing with Eric is that grade is king. And who doesn't like high grade? It's so forgiving. It just allows you so much flexibility. It's glamorous. Everyone likes to see that splashy VG. I mean, you can spend your whole life looking for VG and never ever see it. I know lots of people who've never found VG in the bush, and fortunately, I've done it a couple of times on other projects as well. But nothing, obviously, that led to anything like Valentine Lake. But and again, like I said, I'm only taking a little part of that story as bringing people into that area. And like I said, whoever fills the mine can have that sample to put on display if they want it.
Let's chat a little bit about what's going on in Newfoundland these days. There's a lot of news. We were both talking about that earlier. There's a lot of news coming out. It gathered attention last year, I think, when Eric Sprott started making a lot of investments, and then we all saw everything was slow to come back from the labs. But perseverance. Now all the results are in, and there's a lot of interest in the area.
Yeah, certainly. And again, Valentine Lake has played a major role in bringing attention to Newfoundland, because the knock on Newfoundland historically was that there aren't any large gold deposits here. Prior to, I guess, Hope Brook being developed in the early 80s, Newfoundland's gold production was largely limited exclusively to byproduct from base metal mines. In fact, up until Hope Brook came along, our biggest gold producer were the Buckens mines in Central that produced, I think, about 750,000 ounces of gold. Not bad for a base metal mine. And I think about 65 million ounces of silver. So so no one ever thought Newfoundland was a good place to come look. And of course, there's always the tangled history of the concession system, which basically dominated or kept, I guess, competitive claim staking and a junior sector, completely out of the picture here in Newfoundland. So really, and I say this to a lot of people, I think Newfoundland right now is where Timmins was in 1910 in terms of our gold, sort of development history. I mean, clearly now, we know we can get 4 or 5 million ounce gold deposits thanks to Valentine Lake. And and obviously some very fabulous looking high grade properties, including Moosehead, Newfoundland's property, Labrador Gold's property, and even in the Bay Verte Peninsula. A lot of people seem to forget that there currently is no gold mining going on in central Newfoundland. All of the gold being mined in Newfoundland currently is coming from the Bay Verte Peninsula. So, there's more to Newfoundland than just the central Newfoundland gold trend as well. And I think that kind of worked in Sokoman's favor and our joint venture partner, Valentine Resources, in that where everybody was kind of focused on that one major structure, the Cape Ray, Valentine Lake shear zone. We know through our own experience and from what I just said about Baie Verte, that there are other, productive gold belts in this province. So that opened up opportunities for us. In fact, our prior to our joint venture with Benton, we had another 100. We still have it. We staked, I think, about 2,000 claims in total, about 500 square kilometers along the Baie Verte line. Basically, it was wide open for staking in areas where I think people have overlooked potential for a slightly different type of gold deposit than what we're chasing in Central, more akin to deposits like Curranault in Northern Ireland, 6 million ounce gold deposit. Wow. In rocks that are the rocks on the western half of the Baie Verte Peninsula are the equivalent time and stratigraphic and metamorphic, everything equivalent to rocks over in Northern Ireland. And we just announced not that long ago, I think 880, the results from 880 till samples that we had collected up there over 2021. And we've got a 30-kilometer long gold trend. Now, there may be multiple sources in that, but we've got a 30-kilometer long gold trend with a lot of samples carrying a lot of pristine gold grains. And for those that don't know what pristine might mean, it means good things. If you're looking for gold and you've got gold in till, pristine grains are grains that have not traveled very far, or at least are interpreted not to travel very far, which is good for targeting. So we've got probably 8 or 10 priority 1 targets that we're going to be chasing down in 2022. And so basically it tells us that, yeah, these rocks are potentially productive rocks here in Newfoundland. And so, yeah, I mean, there's more opportunities here. And then the Alliance staked 3 projects, again, focusing on big regional structures elsewhere in Newfoundland that people kind of just flew over in their haste to get to Central. Not there's anything wrong with Central Newfoundland. Hey, Moosehead's in Central. So, yeah, I think Newfoundland finally is getting its the attention it deserves. And yes, you're correct. It has caused some issues with respect to lab. We only have the 1 lab here in Newfoundland, Eastern Analytical, and of course they do fantastic work. Otherwise they wouldn't be used like companies like Marathon, who use them basically as their main lab. Of course, yes, you do check samples elsewhere, but yeah. So, but you know what? That issue faces all of us. It's not like one company has an advantage over the others in terms of getting results back. We're all in that same boat. Basically, there used to be a rush service. Now I think that's the normal service. So paying the extra rush any further. Yeah, paying extra didn't get you any further ahead in the line. So basically, it's first come first serve sort of thing again. And you know what? They're doing a great job over there managing that load. I think because we know if one company was sending all of their rocks from many drills. They would only be doing their work sort of thing because of the volume. So I think they're doing a good job in basically managing the load and servicing all their clients as best they can. And my hat's off to them for that as well.
Oh, it really went, it felt like it went from 0 to 100 and in a very challenging time with COVID restrictions as well. And I commend everyone as well, being able to put out field crews and get the types of results that are coming back in at adding a heavy new burden onto everybody's load is fabulous.
Well, absolutely. And you know what, a point to note there, and fortunately, the government were able to, in its wisdom, and you don't often say that about governments, deemed the mining and mineral exploration industry an essential service. And that allowed us to continue to operate, although obviously, especially back in the early days with some very, not onerous, but I mean, with a lot of care and concern, especially for our staff and everybody's staff. And, we immediately shut down when the province shut down. And after a few weeks and more information started to come out, we talked to our drilling contractor, and we were able to work out an arrangement whereby they were able to drill, we were able to get our core, we were able to do our job, and kept things going. Fortunately, like, it wasn't just a total shutdown like some other sectors of the economy. I mean, I really feel for people that lost their jobs. I mean, we basically slowed down for a few weeks, and that was it, and basically full bore. So we've been very lucky.
Yeah, and brought a lot of jobs in at a time when people were losing jobs.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, it's maybe at one point in time, people will look back and realize the monumental effort that was put into keeping everything going, like you say, not just by the companies but by the government as well, and in honoring that it's an essential service for the community. Can we talk a little bit about lithium, because you were known for gold and then started coming out with some fabulous results in lithium, and caught me off guard, but it's continuing, isn't it? Yeah,
well, again, always have your eyes open and be open to new ideas and anything that's different. As you mentioned earlier, if it doesn't look like it's shouldn't be there, well, you got to go look at it. That's priority number one. But no, our Golden Hope joint venture with Benton it's still, I think, a high quality gold target. It's just that the lithium has kind of dragged us over that side of the road for a little bit, and rightly so. I mean, any opportunity, especially one that's potentially significant and of potential impact to our shareholders, it's our mandate to follow these things. And you know what? I've actually gotten emails from shareholders who think I fell off the wagon because I'm looking for lithium. I mean, I'm sorry, but what do you want me to do? Ignore it? We're an exploration company. We're not a mining company. So, but that's it. I mean, and you know what? That's fine too, because some people are purists. They want a gold company, and maybe we are spending a portion of our time on non-gold assets, but again, it's my mandate to maximize shareholder value, and that includes looking at any opportunity that comes by in the rock business. That is, I mean, we're not going to get into Bitcoin or anything, but we won't go there. That's a bad word. But with all due respect to the Bitcoiners out there, I mean. Where it'll go, Janet, from here, only time will tell. But you know what? These things generally don't occur in isolation, and I'm talking about pegmatite dikes. They generally occur in swarms, and quite extensive. They can be, the districts globally can be 20, 30, 40, 50 kilometers long, and it just so happens that the Golden Hope property does have about that same strike length in terms of the structure tied up. Like I said, we focused on structures, and a deep-seated structure is important for the formulation of these types of systems. And so we staked the Bay-Des fault based on its gold potential, and it also seems to have some decent lithium potential. Now, we did poke a few, like I said, reconnaissance holes in. We did get core in the box with lithium in it. But we've been poking through the old assessment files, historical work done underground. There's notes and mentions of pegmatite dikes found up to 6 kilometers away from where we drilled. So they may or may not be lithium bearing, but you know what? This snow can't melt fast enough for us to get down there, because this is all very new. But we'll be, like I said, any mention of a pegmatite dike in the literature, we're going to be on it.
Well, and I think we talked about this before, that there's a mine in northern Canada, Northwest Territories, Canton. It was a tungsten mine, but they were drilling and exploring for tungsten, and just happened to take a black light out at night to look for something, and the whole thing lit up. And so years spent on another commodity turned into a tungsten mine that operated, I think, off and on for decades. So
and you know what? There's plenty of examples of that. I mean, Olympic Dam I mean, a giant, one of, a monster class ore body was drilled back in the 70s. And apparently the core sat in Iraq for a year or two. I mean, I may be a little bit off on the exact history of this, but wasn't recognized for what it was until some of the copper started to oxidize in the core and somebody noticed it. Wow. It's crazy. And yeah, these things can come in as a blue. You just have to be, like I said, just have your eyes open. A lesson for all prospectors.
Yes.
Look, don't go in with blinders on.
I actually saved myself from an encounter with a snake because of a lesson a geologist taught me. I was out and it was daytime, but for some reason ground had been disturbed and there was a copperhead on the ground, but it was sleeping. And I saw it just at the last minute. I was about to step on it and nobody could believe that I saw it. And I said, the reason I saw it is I was taught by a geologist that you always look for something that doesn't belong. And
Yes.
a snake lying there, just even something that just moved slightly or didn't look normal.
Yeah.
So great advice from geologists.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I want to go back to your comment about Bitcoin because I just want to go there for a second. There's I never was a gold bug until I got involved with a conference for the gold antitrust group many years ago in 2005 and became a bit of a gold bug. But you could put it in your pocket. It's real, right?
Yes, it is real. Yeah, I don't even know what. Like I said, I know enough about it to be dangerous, but I just don't understand the concept of it. And I can't. Can I use it around? Can I go to Tim Hortons and use it? I mean, no, probably not. But anyway.
When you're power to them, but when your power goes out or your power goes off, how do you access it? That gold is in your pocket at all times, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a measure of value historically and a hedge against inflation. So a great place to be. You are also a fan of coins that Newfoundland used to produce as well.
Well, I'm first and foremost a Newfoundlander. So anything to do with Newfoundland's pre-Confederation history, I collect, I look, I seek out. I've got stuff downstairs in my bar that I found with the metal detector, pre-Confederation mines in Newfoundland. A lot of people probably don't know that around from the 1880 until about 1900, obviously with a few ups and downs in that period, Newfoundland was one of the world's largest leading producers of copper from mines, basically from the Bayvert, Springdale area sort of thing. At one point, there were maybe not obviously all operating at the same time, but they were up to, I think, 26 mines. And there were actually, believe it or not, 2 smelters working in northeastern Newfoundland at the time, or northwestern Newfoundland at the time. And yeah, so things like that. And but yeah, one of my passions is Newfoundland coins and stamps, because prior to 49, of course, we had our own currency. And one of my favorites to collect are Newfoundland gold coins, which are 1/10 of an ounce. They're spectacular looking coins with Queen Victoria on the back. And yeah, I just have a passion for any and all things Newfoundland. I don't know, call me crazy, but like I said, I'm a Newfoundlander true and true.
That's a good thing. I've had the pleasure of living in mining towns with predominantly the population predominantly from Newfoundland, and you couldn't ask for more wonderful people. And one of the things I like about working in this jurisdiction is that spirit of cooperation that doesn't just exist in the community, but it's really existing between the companies as well that are exploring there. And this information sharing that's taking to use a local saying, I would hope all boats float higher. And I really like how I'm seeing that information share that's making everybody better.
Oh, absolutely. If Company X, which is staked next to Company Y and Z, Company X makes a discovery, it's good for Y and Z as well. So I know I've spread information around. I've told people about stuff I've seen in the rocks underground, and I make no bones about it. What good is it for me to keep that to myself? It's not going to benefit me. So why not help someone, in their efforts to basically achieve what we're all looking for, which is success on our properties. Again, Newfound Gold has brought tremendous attention to Newfoundland. So I wish them all the luck in the world, obviously, and their success will ultimately be our success in terms of being able to attract capital and credibility. Again, like I said, I think Newfoundland is where Timmins was 100 years ago, and we're going to do our best to change that as quickly as we can. The concept that there aren't big gold deposits in Newfoundland. Well, I think when it's all said and done and the dust settles on this in how many years, but you will see Newfoundland, being one of the largest, I think, endowments of gold in the country.
And Sokoman is really turning into one of the leading companies there. Your discoveries and the work you're doing, I think you're emerging very quickly as one of the top companies that are out there.
Well, thank you, and and of course we've also had the advantage of being here before most people came. So we have the advantage of at the early start, if you will, and obviously there weren't many people to invest in at the time because it was basically us and a handful of others. I mean, you look at the claims map not historically, but even from 2018. It's bare compared to what it is now. And in fact, I think there are more claims staked in Newfoundland than there ever was historically. And the lab says, they weren't even this busy during the Voisey Bay rush. And we all remember how massive that was. And so, yeah, everyone's success, we all try. If someone asked me, if you worked on this property, what do you remember of it? I'll tell them. Without hesitation. I guess my phone's going to start ringing. Good thing I turned it off. Good thing I turned it off. But anyway, a lot of the work should be old enough that all the old assessment files, should be in there, and all confidentiality should be off that now. But anyway, but no, if someone wanted to call me up and chat about a property, I'll gladly chat them up.
Well, you definitely have the history. So what's in the work plan this year for your projects? Well,
we're going to be a heck of a lot busier because we have, several more projects than we did, a year and a half ago. It wasn't that long ago. We had one project, Moosehead. Then along came Fleur de Lis, and then the joint venture with Benton. We staked massive, we staked like 6,000 claims, which is quite an undertaking. And I don't think it's the biggest portfolio. I think there's a couple of companies that have more ground, but from our perspective, and we actually had to go out and raise a bit more money because the treasury we did have was largely earmarked for Moosehead, as it should. It's our flagship property. We've got to build this thing up as quickly as we can. So there's 50,000 more meters to come at Moosehead. We've got. It's difficult to say whether or not we'll get drilling at Fleur de Lis this year, but where we're still at the till and target evaluation stage, unless we happen to find something sticking out as a ground. Which, hey, has that ever happened before?
No, never to you.
Things could get fast tracked. Yeah. But right now, it's maybe up to the trenching level. I'm saying for now, it could change at Fleur de Lis, and bang, we just raised $5 million to basically move forward on our Grey River, where we announced the first drill holes for gold on that project, and as well the lithium. We're probably going to spend $4 or $5 million, on those two projects as well. Difficult to say, how many holes that translate to in terms of dollars, because again, Moosehead you couldn't put a property in a better spot. I mean, the Trans-Canada Highway runs through it. Yeah. There's no Trans-Canada Highway in Grey River, but you know what? The biggest highway in the world is there, the Atlantic Ocean. So it's not like it's isolated, but you can certainly get there.
Yeah, it's
Just got to deal with the fog. So,
I think that's one thing I learned from one of the prospectors was how close everything is to eventually to the ocean and a port, right?
yeah, and that's critical, and especially in some of the not so much for gold, because gold you can fly your product out in a helicopter. You know, you pour your gold bars and you put them in a basket and fly them out, or a Brinks truck comes up to your back door. Uh, Things like lithium, where you're probably going to have to start looking at creating a concentrate and moving that to a plant. You're probably going to have a little more in terms of infrastructure. So again, uh, the Kraken, which is what we call the pegmatite swarm at Golden Hope, is only 30 kilometers from Tidewater, so ice free on the south coast as well. So put it in a boat and away you go, sort of thing.
Well, and the federal budget identified lithium as a critical metal and has added some exploration tax credits. So not a bad thing to happen
And you
either.
know what? Our CFO is licking his chops saying, does this mean we're going to get big rebates, get our money back? I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, again, one of the things I think that can help this project move along are things like that. I mean, if we can qualify, we'll just keep recycling that money back in the ground. It means less dilution and hard dollars as well. So you're not under the gun to spend them in a year's whatever time frame. But yeah, no, I think timing again is everything. Lithium discovery could be timed just right in terms of at least being able to attract interest and capital, hopefully some serious capital in the not too distant future.
And added that to all the opportunity you have at Moosehead and others with the gold. Maybe you get to have your own gold for your gold coins.
Yeah, and you know what, Janet, we're finally getting. Moosehead is a very structurally complex area, as Newfoundland is one big, multiple orogenic events, and you can't live through those things and not have some structural complexity to you. We know from the work that we've done now over the past couple of years that there are multiple structures at work hosting gold mineralization at Moosehead, and they're not all oriented the same way. They cross cut, they offset. So the program, as we've laid out, requires the pattern of drilling that we've been doing for the past year and a half now, which is instead of 50-meter space holes and hoping to hit the big one, we're now down to more tighter space drilling for many reasons. High-grade veins aren't big sheets that sit in the ground that you can drill anywhere and get them. Not like an iron ore deposit. With all due respect to the iron ore people, they're big, but these things tend, and sometimes you're challenged in just maintaining continuity over 50 or even 100 meters. So, and you can miss stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the high-grade zones,
like raisin bread, right?
Yes, exactly. One of the we're chasing. A lot of us use an example, or I guess the type locality of Fosterville in Australia as the model we're chasing, and rightly so. I think enough people who are a lot smarter than me have come out and said, yes, the systems that we seem to be getting here in Newfoundland and central Newfoundland are very similar to Fosterville. And I've had the good fortune to have visited Fosterville a number of years ago, prior to it being the mine that it is now, while I was there on other business. And I have managed to bring back a few rocks. Like, hey, funny, I do pick up rocks from time. I do pick up rocks from time to time, and it's amazing, because like I said, that was in 2007, I think it was, and or around there. And it's funny how things come around in this business. To have a project, and what attracted me to that area, I was down there looking at Olympic Dam. I mentioned Olympic Dam earlier, the giant deposit, IOCG type. So while I was there, prior to my departure, I managed to make a call because I was aware of the mine, Fosterville, and the fact that it sits in geology very similar in age, in structural history, and things like that to the Central Newfoundland Gold Belt. So I phoned up the mine and asked them if I could come in. I'm visiting from Canada, and would you mind if I, got a tour around a bit? So they said, come on, we'll look after you. So anyway, I didn't get underground, but I did get to see, obviously some key features that when I was there, and I said, oh my, I know where these rocks are. I know where to find rocks like this home. So so I just took a couple of pieces, and actually in some of my presentations, I show at the very back a box of core from Moosehead, and laid on top of the box of core is a polished sample from Fosterville. You can't tell the difference. It's just like it just blends into the box so good. And I know that's rocks can look similar, but the fact that they are so similar in so many key features, certainly says that Moosehead has the potential to be a Fosterville, or I'd even take a fraction of a Fosterville right now.
We'll make sure that we put up one of those pictures on the podcast as well, and people can watch that, link to it on our social media.
Yes.
I really enjoyed our conversation, Tim.
Well, yeah, I've been so lucky in my career. I've been to a lot of places. Some I'd like to go back to again. Some I don't care to see again. But again, just to come full circle and be back home again, and friends and family, and exploring a wonderful project, and having some world attention on this part of Newfoundland, and not just us. Obviously, Newfound, certainly are the standard bearers now. But I've been very lucky, and I've got a great team, and without them, obviously, there wouldn't be the success we've had at Moosehead. And if any of the staff are listening out there, thank you very much. And couldn't have done it without you. And and success to all of our neighbors, everybody. Your success will be ours.
Yeah, I wish you a great season and great success. You definitely deserve it, and you work so incredibly hard. I just want to remind people your symbol is SIC on the TSX. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And thank you again, Tim, for joining us today. I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a lot, and look forward to seeing you in your home place there working before too long. I also want to thank everybody for joining us today. And please remember, at Kissing the Cod, all things gold, we hope to continue to bring you some interesting stories and interesting people. And one time we're going to have to explain to people what Kissing the Cod is, right, Tim?
Yes.
A local custom and tradition, correct?
Uncooked.
There you go. a teaser for another talk on the topic, but always important to respect local culture and tradition, and what we're trying to do by remembering that in our title. So thank you again.
Thank you, Janet.